It all started with a sound no one expected to hear outside Buckingham Palace at dawn, a sharp metallic click as an envelope slid through the brass letterbox. The footman, barely awake, froze when he saw the royal insignia. Within minutes, the quiet halls of the palace erupted into a rush of calls, footsteps, and whispers. That envelope carried a document that would soon set the world ablaze. By 6:30 that morning, the palace had uploaded it online, a simple note, barely a page long. Yet, it struck the media like thunder. For the first time, the monarchy had acknowledged the growing storm of rumors about Archie and Lilibet's identities. Reporters gasped live on air. "This is highly unusual," one anchor said, turning to her co-host in disbelief. And she was right. The royal family never comments on gossip. But this time, they had. Outside the gates, reporters huddled under the cold November sky, murmuring the same question. What pushed the crown to speak out after all this time? The document didn't mention any medical claims or theories, it simply clarified royal procedures. But between the lines, the message was clear. The palace was no longer sitting silently while the internet tore apart two innocent children's existence. For the first time in years, they were reclaiming control. To understand how it came to this, we have to rewind. Back to when Archie's birth in 2019 was supposed to be a joyous royal moment. Everyone expected the familiar scene. Catherine outside the hospital in her bright dress, William by her side just like Diana had done. But when Meghan gave birth at Portland Hospital, things were different. There was no golden easel, no hospital steps, no immediate announcement, just a short, delayed statement and a tightly controlled photo call in a dim corridor at Windsor. It wasn't wrong, just different. But in the royal world, different is enough to spark whispers. Then came 2021. Lilibet's birth in California. History was made. She was the first American-born grandchild of a British monarch in waiting. But with that came a storm. The palace didn't receive the usual notifications or records. The information came through press releases from across the Atlantic. For King Charles, then still Prince of Wales, it was worrying. Not because of malice, but because tradition thrives on precision. The monarchy runs on rituals, registrations, christenings, and church records. Without them, confusion spreads like wildfire. Princess Anne saw it coming early on. If the records are incomplete, she reportedly warned, speculation will fill the space. And oh, how right she was. By the time Charles became king, that space had turned into a vacuum, one filled with internet theories and wild claims. Catherine, who had lived through 3 royal births herself, noticed the oddities first. Tiny inconsistencies, missing paperwork, delayed filings. She brushed them off, but the knot in her stomach grew. Soon after, when Harry and Meghan stepped back from royal duties, everyone assumed things would calm down. Instead, the distance fed the fire. Polls showed Americans, especially those who once adored Diana, were confused. They didn't hate Meghan, they just didn't understand the secrecy. At public events, Catherine began facing unexpected questions. Have you met Archie recently? Will there be a photo of all the cousins? Any plans for a christening? Always polite but pointed. And when Lilibet was born, Catherine could almost feel the gossip forming before the press releases even landed. A royal child born in America, no chapel, no records, no tradition. Just silence and speculation. One day, her office forwarded her a media summary. The internet was swirling with claims, some silly, some hurtful, some frighteningly detailed. A poll even showed that many viewers weren't sure whether Archie and Lilibet were recognized as true royal heirs. Catherine stared at the chart for a long time. Later, she admitted it troubled her deeply. By 2022, even palace staff seemed confused. One young aide whispered during a Windsor gathering, unsure of the official line about the Sussex children. Catherine overheard but said nothing. She didn't blame him. If insiders were uncertain, what hope did the public have? Little by little, quiet notes of inconsistency piled up. One missing record here, a delayed entry there. Alone, harmless. Together, alarming. Then came the tipping point. Early November 2025, the palace was tense. Everyone could sense it like a storm about to break. Queen Camilla, seasoned and steely, noticed the shift in the press. Major outlets NBC, The Washington Post, People magazine, even The Times were now publishing detailed pieces questioning the royal record-keeping. Not the tabloids, the serious press. And that, for Camilla, was a red flag. She called an urgent meeting at Clarence House. Only a few trusted advisors were present. The room was thick with tension as printed headlines lay spread across the polished table. This is no longer gossip, one advisor warned. It's becoming a credibility issue. Camilla's gaze was steady. "We do not correct gossip," she said, "but we cannot ignore confusion." Her strategist, Fiona Lyle, quietly added, "Then we take the middle road, clarity without confrontation." By evening, the draft was ready. It wasn't emotional or defensive, it was clinical. A one-page note explaining how royal children are recorded, how titles are assigned by law, and how misinformation about minors had become concerning. Facts only. No names, no drama. That night, Camilla took it to King Charles. She placed the folder on his desk. He read silently for several minutes, his expression heavy. Finally, he sighed. "Rumors come and go, but I never imagined they would reach the children." Camilla looked at him with quiet conviction. "If we don't define the truth, others will." He nodded. The next morning, Princess Anne reviewed the note and gave her rare, firm approval. "It's not about sides," she said. "It's about protecting the monarchy's integrity." That sealed it. The decision was made. The only question was when to release it. When the statement finally went live at dawn on November 27th, the internet exploded. Every major network broke the news. The calm, factual tone of the document only amplified its shock value. The palace had spoken. In California, Meghan woke before sunrise to a phone buzzing nonstop. As she scrolled through message after message, she froze. The palace's new guidance wasn't personal, but she could feel the subtext. For years, she told her story her way, but now, the institution had reclaimed control of the narrative surrounding her children. The note spoke of process, law, record-keeping, but behind its polished words, she could feel the monarchy's shadow. Within hours, Number Archie and Number Lilibet were trending across continents. News panels dissected every line of the statement. Legal experts debated its meaning. Some said it was a warning to the public. Others called it a turning point in royal transparency. On-screen graphics of the royal line of succession appeared, Archie and Lilibet's names still firmly listed as 6th and 7th. The palace never removed them, one analyst emphasized. That's their message, law over rumor. In London, crowds formed outside the gates again, buzzing with curiosity. For many, it felt like the monarchy had finally drawn a line protecting its youngest members from a digital storm gone too far. Meanwhile, Meghan sat quietly, staring out at the California sunlight. She thought of Archie's first cries in London, of her struggle for privacy, of the christening that never resembled a royal one. She knew the palace wasn't attacking, but it still felt like a boundary had been redrawn without her consent. Back in Britain, the palace was in full crisis management mode. Lawyers convened, analysts briefed, staff updated websites. The goal was clear: control the narrative. The royal machine moved swiftly, emphasizing legality and precedent. "If we don't define the rules," one official said, "others will redefine them." By afternoon, the noise reached its peak. Commentators argued endlessly. Some praised the palace for finally stepping in. Others accused it of subtle manipulation. Online, people divided into camps: Team Palace, Team Sussex, and those exhausted by both. Yet, beneath all the noise, a quieter truth emerged. The monarchy had reminded everyone that legitimacy isn't a matter of opinion, it's a matter of record. In Kensington Palace, William reviewed the situation calmly. "If this shields the children," he said softly, "then it's the right thing." Catherine, on the other hand, felt something more personal. For her, this wasn't politics, it was about family. About keeping the next generation safe from being pawns in a never-ending storm. As night fell over London, the palace lights glimmered against the fog. The monarchy had broken its silence, and for once, it wasn't scandal, it was clarity. But even clarity comes with consequences. Because once the crown speaks, the world never hears silence the same way again. By late afternoon, the royal machine was humming like a hive. Inside Buckingham Palace, phones rang non-stop, staff darted through corridors, and journalists waited outside as if expecting someone to step forward with answers. But the palace had already spoken. Their statement was out there for the world to dissect. Now came the harder part, managing the storm that followed. Across newsrooms, anchors and analysts pored over every word. The internet was boiling, hashtags climbing by the second. Some people called it a masterstroke of transparency. Others accused the palace of trying to reclaim a narrative it had lost years ago. But for those within the royal walls, the intention was simple: protect the children. Behind the polished doors, senior aides gathered for a follow-up meeting. Papers rustled, teacups clinked softly, and the tension hung thick. A legal advisor summed it up best: "We're not defending adults. We're safeguarding minors who never chose this life." and everyone in the room knew what he meant. The crown wasn't just fighting gossip anymore, it was defending its legacy in a digital world where truth could vanish in seconds. Over at Kensington Palace, William and Catherine took it all in quietly. William, calm as ever, listened to updates while gazing out at the gray London sky. "If this helps shield the children from the noise," he finally said, "then it was worth it." Catherine, though, felt it more deeply. She knew what it was like to have her family dissected by strangers. That evening, as she tucked George, Charlotte, and Louis into bed, she found herself thinking of Archie and Lilibet children growing up thousands of miles away, yet tied to the same lineage, the same scrutiny, the same impossible expectations. Meanwhile, in California, Meghan and Harry sat side by side in silence. The statement had hit differently for each of them. For Harry, it was a bittersweet moment, relief that his children were acknowledged, yet frustration that the palace's words were so cold, so impersonal. Meghan, ever composed in public, felt an ache she couldn't quite name. For years, she had tried to control her family's story, to protect her kids from the very chaos now roaring louder than ever. "They're defining my children's lives again," she whispered, scrolling through the headlines. Harry reached for her hand but said nothing. Back in London, Queen Camilla sat in her study, reading late into the night. She'd expected backlash, but what struck her was how quickly the global tone shifted. By evening, major outlets had stopped speculating about rumors and started explaining royal law. The noise, though still loud, was suddenly more factual, more grounded. It wasn't peace, but it was order. And in the royal world, order is victory. As midnight approached, Buckingham Palace glowed against the dark sky, its lights reflecting off the wet pavement like golden ripples. Inside, exhaustion lingered, but so did a strange calm. The monarchy had spoken, not through emotion or drama, but through history, legality, and unshakable poise. For the first time in a long while, the narrative belonged to them. Outside, the world continued to debate, tweet, and speculate, but the crown had drawn its line. And in that stillness, one truth settled over London. No matter how loud the noise becomes, the monarchy's power has always been the same. It doesn't shout to be heard. It simply waits, and when it finally speaks, the world listens.